Can a 22-year-old be a tennis superstar and still enjoy life like any other guy his age? Carlos Alcaraz is at the center of this debate. While he dominates on court and makes history with his racket, off court he remains a young man who smiles, travels, hangs out with friends, and has fun. Some criticize him, others understand. But now, his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, has decided to speak up. Is Carlitos distracted? Or is he simply living? Today, we tell you what his team really thinks. Carlos Alcaraz is not only one of the best tennis players in the world, he's also a media phenomenon. At 22 years old, he has lifted trophies at the most prestigious tournaments and has held the ATP #1 ranking. But his life is not just about tennis. He also attends events, spends time with friends, and openly shows his human and joyful side. This has drawn criticism from those who believe he should be more focused, more dedicated, more isolated in the high-performance bubble. But in the face of this media pressure, his coach Juan Carlos Ferrero has come forward with strong words. In an interview with Manu Carreño on El Larguero, the former world #1 made it clear that the key is balance. Ferrero explained that he's had to adapt to a very dynamic player, full of energy and natural talent. And for that reason, he doesn't try to turn him into a robot. He gives him freedom, within structure. Above all, I'm there to give him confidence, he said, and to remind him that when he gives 100% and fights hard, he's really good. Ferrero also discussed what happens off the court. He acknowledged that a fundamental part of working with Carlos is managing everything happening around him, from the people he surrounds himself with to distractions, and the pressure of being a global figure. Keeping him focused during training is the hardest thing we deal with, he admitted. Still, he made it clear that his player is managing everything smartly. Carlos handles it his way, and he's doing it well, Ferrero said firmly. He's 22, he's maturing and gradually starting to see things more like we do, but at the same time, he still has that youth that makes him enjoy life. With these words, he made it clear that the balance between professionalism and youth is not a flaw. It's a natural part of the process. For Ferrero, coaching at this level is no longer just about technique. It's about knowing how to manage the world around a star. Because with Carlos Alcaraz, you're not just coaching a player. You're guiding a global phenomenon. Juan Carlos Ferrero has said what many needed to hear: Carlos Alcaraz isn't distracted, he's living. And he's doing so wisely, with the support of a team that knows him, cares for him, and understands him. Being young and being professional are not mutually exclusive. On the contrary, in Carlitos' case, they enhance each other. Because tennis needs talent. But it also needs soul. Are we witnessing the birth of a new legendary tennis rivalry? Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner are writing, point by point, a rivalry that could define an era. The Spaniard and the Italian have split the last 5 Grand Slams and are competing not just for titles, but for history. Are we seeing the new Big Two? Today, we bring you everything about the monumental clash between Alcaraz and Sinner at Roland Garros, a tension that keeps growing and might explode in an epic final. Tennis has always had rivalries that change everything. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic showed that for 2 decades. Now, the torch seems to have passed to Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, who are no longer up-and-comers but the leading figures of the circuit. Since 2024, they've won all the Grand Slams. Alcaraz took Roland Garros and Wimbledon, Sinner, the Australian Open and US Open. It's a showdown that goes far beyond rankings. The pressure between them is palpable. During the months Sinner was off the courts due to suspension, Alcaraz felt it more than ever, not just because of the chance to get closer to the world #1, but because deep down, he needs the Italian. His coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, said it clearly: they feed off each other. When they play, Carlos raises his level because he knows Jannik is there. That competition is what drives him. That rivalry has reached Roland Garros with unprecedented intensity. Although they haven't yet faced each other in Paris this year, all signs point to a possible final showdown. It would be their first Grand Slam final against each other, and the tension is already in the air. If one wins in 3 sets, the other answers with a win in 2. If one gives a bold statement, the other delivers a challenging wink at the next press conference. They study each other, pressure each other, and push each other. Interestingly, despite this intense rivalry, there's also mutual respect. Alcaraz admitted he missed Sinner during his absence from the circuit. And Sinner, in turn, said that playing against Carlos is a unique motivation. But like in all great rivalries, that respect coexists with fierce competitive pride. There are no friends off the court. There are 2 young men hungry for glory, who know only one can stand at the top. Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner are not just shaping the present of tennis. They're building a storyline that could last decades. Their rivalry is real, but it's also the fuel that pushes them to improve every week. Just like with Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic, this new era is not only about talent. It's about rivalry, character, the will to be the best and prove it with every shot. And at Roland Garros, it could all culminate in a final for the ages. Can a small detail make the difference between winning and losing at Roland Garros? Carlos Alcaraz is dominating in Paris, but he still faces one major issue that could complicate his road to the title: his serve. As he prepares for a semifinal against Lorenzo Musetti and, possibly, a final against giants like Sinner, Djokovic, or Zverev, all with powerful weapons in their serve, the big question is: can Carlos make up for this weakness with his immense talent? Stay with us, because today we break it all down. Carlos Alcaraz is already in the Roland Garros semifinals. The defending champion has come through tough matches and has shown dominance in most of his games, as he did against Tommy Paul, whom he crushed 0-6, 1-6, 4-6. But beyond the scoreline, there's a worrying stat for his team: his serving performance. According to official tournament data, Carlos has an average serve rating of 7.6, lower than his direct rivals. Alexander Zverev leads that chart with an 8.8 average, while Jannik Sinner follows closely with a solid 7.8. Even Djokovic, despite his ups and downs this year, maintains stronger serve stats than Carlitos. And while the serve isn't everything in tennis, it does make a difference when margins tighten, especially in the final rounds of a Grand Slam. But does this mean Carlos has little chance of lifting the trophy again in Paris? Not at all. Though his serve may not be the most dominant, he makes up for it with an impressive technical arsenal: drop shots that dismantle opponents, pinpoint lobs, an explosive forehand, and, most importantly, tactical versatility that makes him unpredictable. Against rivals with better serves, Alcaraz can impose his rhythm from the return and force long rallies that wear down opponents both mentally and physically. Moreover, his next rival, Lorenzo Musetti, knows him well. And that's not good news for the Italian. This year, they've faced off twice, and the Mercian won both times. Even so, Lolo shouldn't be underestimated. He's had a notable season and enters the semifinals with confidence. Musetti is talented and creative, but he lacks the consistency that has taken Alcaraz to world number 2. Alcaraz's serve may be a weakness, but not a sentence. His talent, mindset, and adaptability keep him as one of the top favorites. Plus, having won Roland Garros last year gives him an advantage. The Spaniard doesn't need to have the best serve in the tournament if he can keep dismantling his opponents with intelligence, rhythm, and unwavering willpower. Carlos Alcaraz gains an edge through his improvement in Paris. This year, Carlos Alcaraz has made progress in one key area: the serve. Thanks to changes introduced this season, he's become more effective, as he's showing at Roland Garros. Serving is increasingly important in tennis, as players are bigger and stronger, allowing them to serve harder. Historically, the Spanish school has downplayed serving. Spanish tennis has long been one of the sport's greatest powerhouses, especially on clay, but its style has been more grinding than powerful, and that includes a lack of emphasis on the serve. For that reason, in recent years, as Spain has stopped producing top-tier talent in large numbers, Carlos Alcaraz remains the country's major figure. The Mercian is world number 2 and is vying to be the best. In every tournament he enters, he battles Sinner, the current ATP leader. The two push each other to improve and add weapons to their games, and for the Spanish star, that weapon has been the serve. A constant improvement. Carlitos isn't among the tallest players, but at 183 centimeters, he can serve well, though it wasn't his strength early in his career. This season, however, he's made useful tweaks. For starters, during the preseason, he changed his serving mechanics, which, once mastered, added some extra speed. He also adjusted his racket slightly, which helped. Beyond that, it's now the stroke he trains the most, and that shows during matches. He wins more points and, more importantly, concedes fewer breaks, long a weak point in his game. This was evident in the quarterfinal match against Tommy Paul. Carlitos lost just 5 games, and more impressively, on his own serve, he dropped only 7 points the entire match. Still, as FERRERO admitted, they keep training it, hoping to build even more confidence. The Roland Garros final is getting closer, and that potential showdown between Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner could soon become reality. For that to happen, Carlos must beat Musetti and Jannik must overcome Djokovic in their respective semifinals, but the French crowd is already anticipating a new clash between tennis's current leaders. A hypothetical final where Alcaraz has the edge. Not just because he beat Sinner a few weeks ago in the Rome Masters 1000 final, but because Carlos has become the Italian's nightmare. And that could repeat in Paris. If both make it to the final, Alcaraz will likely be the favorite to retain the title and beat the Italian again. Carlos Alcaraz strikes fear into Sinner at Roland Garros. A final between Alcaraz and Sinner worries the Italian more than the Spaniard. This isn't just a general impression, it's something big names in tennis are acknowledging. The latest to say it was Patrick Mouratoglou, a well-known coach on the circuit. The Frenchman sees Alcaraz as the only player who can defeat Sinner. Alcaraz is the only player who can beat Sinner, but the reverse isn't true, says Mouratoglou. The Spaniard can lose to many others. I think Jannik isn't vulnerable against anyone, except Carlos, he adds, making it clear that while he sees Sinner as more solid overall, Alcaraz has the tools to beat him. All players fear Sinner more than Alcaraz because they've seen the Mercian be mentally fragile at times, losing to players he should have beaten. The feeling among the players is that they have no chance against Jannik, concludes the coach who once worked with Roger Federer and the Williams sisters. Carlos Alcaraz and Sinner make each other better. The Spanish player has acknowledged multiple times that he steps up when facing the world number one. Yes, I've been inspired by Sinner. I like watching him, taking note of what he does. The way he keeps winning inspires you to play at your best level, said Carlos after his win over Tommy Paul, which earned him a semi-final spot. Sinner, for his part, expresses the same respect and admiration for Alcaraz. He helps you try to be better next time. To know that you need to improve, the Italian admits.